Thank you everybody for being here. This is an amazing turnout. I'm so happy to be here in Australia and so happy to be speaking to all of you. And I want you to know, when I do a meeting back home, I'm lucky to get like 50, 60 people in the room, so this is overwhelming. So I'm a little bit nervous, so I'm actually just imagining you all naked. And I want to tell you, some of you need a little work. So anyway, I'm going to tell my story, which is all roads lead to ASEA, because so many people say, okay, you're a medical doctor, you went through all of that training, all of those years, and actually, you know what? It's been 30 years this month that I graduated from medical school. I was 12, so. But in any case, people wonder, how did you end up doing this? And so, it was a kind of a journey, and things kind of came together, and it was a wonderful path for me. So, I believe there's a clicker. Now, I have to admit up front, you guys, I was never picked to be the AV person in high school, so if I seem like I'm struggling, that's just pretty normal. So let's see. Yeah, right. That was not the right button. Okay, let's pick another one. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, just a little bit of background on me. I really am a real doctor. I would rather be playing one on TV, but it's true, I have a medical degree. I went to Emory, and this probably means nothing to you guys since you're from Australia and I'm from the US. Emory is a wonderful school in Atlanta, Georgia. From there, I went to the Medical University of South Carolina, and this is me on graduation day. That's not my boyfriend, but my best friend, and I just love that picture because look how cute and hopeful I was. I know you're wondering, what happened? Yeah, life. So anyway, this is 25 years later. My friend Buddy Hammerman runs about 300 hospitals in the US, and that's when I introduced him to redox signaling molecules, so that was pretty fun. So I did my residencies. I went up north for that, so when you guys call me a Yank, yeah, I kind of am a Yank. At least I was for 12 years while I was up in Boston. This is in Worcester at the University of Massachusetts, where I first started as a surgeon. I was a urologist, so any of you men out there, the very first operation I learned was an orchiectomy. You don't know what that word means, you can look it up at home. So, yeah, and I actually went on and I did my residency in anesthesia and got certified in pain management, which is a fellowship. So a long 4 years of surgery, then 3 years of anesthesia, then an extra year for pain. So I was like the longest living resident at that hospital. I could go into any department and drink coffee and eat their donuts, as a part of the group. So after that, I actually worked at the Harvard system. Does Harvard mean anything to you guys here? Okay, super. Yeah, I worked for Harvard, and then I worked in a couple of different hospitals around the way. And I was actually chief of anesthesia, believe it or not, at one of those hospitals. This is me when I first got to Texas. Y'all, look at that smile. Do I look happy? No, that is a very pained smile. That's my husband. His name is Joaquin Cordial, and he's the whole reason that I do what I do. And I'll tell you a little bit more about his story. We now are in Galveston, Texas. You guys are familiar with that, outside of Houston. And my husband is still practicing there. I actually made my escape when we were hit by a hurricane and closed down in 2008. And I took a leave of absence from there, and I actually never went back. Now, my husband is a pretty famous guy. In fact, he just recently, his lab in Galveston grew a lung outside of the body. He's a pediatric anesthesiologist and a stem cell researcher. And they actually took lungs and grew them in a bioreactor and then transplanted them into pigs. And they worked. And in fact, these are the scaffolding. And then once they took it back out of the pig, you can see it's vascularized, which is pretty cool. I know a lot of people these days are interested in stem cell. And you know what? I'm not a stem cell researcher. I don't do stem cells. But I have to wonder, if we're talking about little stem cells that grow into something else, think about this. What is it that makes them grow into the tissue that they grow into? Could it be, possibly, redox? We'll talk a little bit about that. They just got published on the Science Translational Medicine, and they're on the front cover, so that's a really pretty big thing. So my husband is doing really amazing work, and it's really important to me that he be around to do it. And my husband was also in the military as well. In fact, he's been awarded a couple of different, from the U.S. Army. He retired as a colonel in the Army Reserves. And he's gotten the Legion of Merit here. He's gotten a Bronze Star for I can't even say the word, for exemplary service. And he's the whole reason that I learned about redox signaling molecules. You see, the last time he was in Iraq, he was running in a sandstorm. He had run like 10 miles. And one of the other doctors said, "You're wheezing." And he said, "Of course I'm wheezing. I just ran 10 miles through a sandstorm." And the guy said, "Well, the rest of us aren't wheezing." And so he harangued him until he went and got a chest x-ray. Turned out he had a huge mass in his chest. Luckily for us, we live in Texas. We live close to this hospital here. And he went there and he got treated. And they used very strong chemicals to treat him. And they did surgery. And then they used this beam, if you will, to get all of the tissue from the surgical field. And so my husband went from being a former marathon runner, still running 8-10 miles a day, to actually wearing oxygen to watch TV. He was in his late 50s at the time, and we thought our lives were over. Now, none of us actually ever expects for our lives to change in a second like that, right? Everybody here feels like they're in pretty good shape, maybe financially, maybe health. You think you've got it all settled, all figured out, what you're going to do, how you're going to retire. And then something like this happens. And you know what, you guys, this stuff happens a lot. And so I tell people, dig your well before you're thirsty, right? We were very blessed. They took care of his problem, and he's disease-free. And that we're very grateful. But we weren't happy that he was left kind of compromised from the treatment. So interestingly, a friend of mine who doesn't even know what H2O stands for calls in. We're having a conversation, and he tells me about redox signaling molecules. And I'm like, he doesn't know my husband is sick. We're just having a conversation. He's a businessman, and he said, "I found something that's an amazing breakthrough that's going to, change humanity. And I don't know what to tell you. People are having amazing results from this product." And I said, "What is it?" And so he tells me, and the funny thing is, or not so funny, is that somebody had told me about this when my mom was sick. My mom had lung cancer. And they said, "You need to look into this," and I didn't. When I saw that it was made from salt water, I deleted all of the emails. Well, my mom passed away, and I was like, when I found out it was the same product, I was like, no. And you guys, I bet against it. I really did not want to deal with the guilt. I am Catholic, we are kind of guilt-ridden, but I did not want to deal with the guilt of not having tried it for my mom. But I did. I got it on my husband, and being a critical thinker, of course, I had another 3 questions. What are redox signaling molecules? Who all, besides being introduced in ASEA, had ever heard of these things? No. And those of you who are guests here, have you ever heard of them before? No. I hadn't either. And this was 6.5 years ago. And if they do exist, how do we know that they're in the bottle that people are talking about? And even if they are in that bottle, how do we know they work in the body like the ones that we naturally make? So these were my questions. A little bit of redox biochemistry for you. Anybody here know the Krebs cycle? Can you stand up and recite it for us? Yay! Okay, here, come on up. Yeah. So anyway, these little molecules are made in the mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of our cells, right? And that's about all you really need to know. Anyway, I called my sister. My sister is not. You want to do the Krebs cycle?
No, I just want to take the picture.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, I called my sister and I said, "Hey, Latham has told me about redox signaling molecules. I've never heard of these things." Now, my sister is not a doctor or a nurse, a scientist or anything, but she is a medical writer for the Medical University of South Carolina, where I went to school. And she said, "Well, I've heard of them." I was like, "No, you haven't," sibling rivalry. And she said, "No, I absolutely have. We've just gotten a $10.5 million COBRA or NIH grant to study these in the body, as far as heart disease, lung disease, obesity, diabetes, you name it." And I was like, "You're kidding me." And she actually sent me the press release. And they really did. Back 7 years ago, it did say redox signaling molecules. Now they've changed it to be oxidants, redox balance, and stress signaling. So I actually called the key researcher and I said, "Hey, did you know that there was a supplement?" And he said, "No, that's not even possible." And I said, "But what if it were?" He goes, "But it's not." I said, "But what if it were?" And he said, "Then I'd want to take it." I said, "I'll be sending you some information." And in case you think life is any different for me as a doctor, I could never get that guy back on the phone again either. So, when I was doing my research, I went to Google for doctors, which is pubmed.gov, right? And back then there was about 6,000 references to redox signaling. Now there's almost 20,000. And there's also a number of different, this is just with one, if you look at the top, redox signaling and one type of challenge. There's all sorts of journals that have to do with this. There are 10,000 studies on redox have been published in medical journals, 1,200 books. There's conferences going on. In fact, there was just a huge international conference in Paris. And I had never heard of this. And you guys have never heard of this. But this is happening behind the scenes. And it's gaining. It's gaining in popularity. It's gaining in importance. This is what I looked at, because back then we didn't have a whole lot of studies. So I looked at the studies that were done by Dr. Neiman, David Neiman, at the Appalachian State in North Carolina, the Appalachian State Human Performance Lab. And what he showed is that athletes taking these products could run faster, further, longer. They had an improvement in their what's called a VO2 max and ventilatory threshold. Now my husband, as I said, was on oxygen to watch TV. So his problem had to do with oxygenation, right? And so I thought, well, if it can help them, maybe it can help my husband. And it's totally non-toxic, so we had nothing to lose. And it had a 30-day money-back guarantee, so, you know, if it doesn't work, we'll get our money back. That's what we were thinking. So we went all in. Now, at that time, I had actually gone back into, I told you I took a little hiatus from anesthesia and tried my hand at network marketing. It was not good. But I went back for age management. Anybody here getting older? Woke up older today than you were yesterday? Yeah. Well, the older I get, the more important age management becomes to me. And so I went for a course. I got certified in age management, which is helping you to get to old age more gracefully and still be vital. You know, like I say, we all want to be 90 years old or more, right? But who here wants to be in a wheelchair or have somebody wiping your drool or wiping something else? No, no thank you. We want to be golfing and hiking and mountain climbing and all that jazz. So this is pretty cool. What's interesting is when I was at one of the conferences, the gentleman was speaking, the keynote speaker was talking about mitochondria and VO2 max and ventilatory threshold, and I was like, wait a minute, this sounds really familiar. Now, we had been on the product at that point for about 6 months, and we're seeing some results, but I had not really bought in. So I went up to him afterwards and I said, hey, have you ever heard of redox signaling molecules? And he said, pool water? Who's tasted it? Pool water? Yeah. And I said, ASEA? And he said, yes, I take it and I recommend it to all my patients. I'm like, oh my God, y'all, I ran up to my hotel room to call my husband and say, I think this might be legit. Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. Now, I'll tell you what, we were on the product. Remember, you know, the 30-day money-back guarantee? We were on the product for 6 weeks and had noticed absolutely nothing. And I called Latham and I said, hey, how long can I get my money back? And he was like, you're past it, keep drinking. And thank God he did, because our blessing was about 6 weeks out. So what was interesting is my husband was in Boston at the Experimental Biology Conference in 2013, and he was presenting his information there, and he called me and he goes, you're not going to believe this. ASEA has a poster there. And I'm like, really? This is big, you guys. This was Dr. David Neiman. Now, they had done studies on athletes, but athletes will only go so far. They will not run or ride a bike to exhaustion until they fall over. So they did it to mice. So the mice, what they found is that the mice on ASEA could run 29% further than mice who were not. So let me tell you what, if you've got mice in your house and you've got them on ASEA, you better put your cats on it too. That's all I can say. So that was really pretty impressive. And in case you're wondering, ASEA is, you guys, it can't get more basic than this. It is made from salt, pristine salt, from Morton salt fields, kosher salt, very pure salt, and distilled water. In fact, they use reverse osmosis. And what they do is they take the saline solution. Any medical people here? Okay, when you start an IV, what do you put in? Is it a saline solution? Yeah. Is that what our bodies are made of? Yes, we're made of salt water, you guys. That's what's made in our cells. So that's what they take. That's what they use. They use the same thing in ASEA that we use on our very cells. It's salt, pure water, and energy. And the energy breaks apart these bonds so that you get a mixture of redox molecules. It's patent protected, so we can't really say exactly what they are, but you're only working with Na, Cl, H, and O. So however you can put those together, it's probably in there. Pretty cool, you guys. And then my favorite. Who loves the gel?
Yes.
Fantastic. In fact, let me stop here and just say, can I see a show of hands of who in this room has either had a life-changing experience with these products or knows somebody who has? Okay, raise your hands up high. You new people who are just learning about this, take a look around the room. Most of the people in here have. So what you're learning about right now is pretty important. Now, you guests who are in these front rows, do any of you have any pain or discomfort anywhere? Okay. Yeah. Is it something you can get to, like a knee or no hemorrhoids, a knee, a shoulder? I'm going to ask you to do something. Okay. Raise your hands again. Can you help me out here? Thanks. Okay. What's hurting you? Shoulder. Okay, take one of these little tubes. Okay, I want you to rub it on your shoulder, just a small amount. You're going to have to take out the little foil thing. And rub it on your shoulder if you can get to it. Thank you, Christine. 3 times in 5 minutes, okay? Raise your hand if you want to be part of our experiment. So you're going to take a tiny little bit. Take a tiny, little pea size. Rub it on your hurt area. But before you do that, you guys, I want you to stop and think. I'm going to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10 where you are. Is it just kind of bothering you a little bit? Maybe it's a 3. Is it really hurting you or hurts a lot with movement? Maybe that's a 7 or an 8. So think about where you are. I'm going to ask you again after you've had a chance to put it on where you are. So anyway, this is an incredible product, and I have to admit, when they first came out with it, they did it because we were taking the liquid and we were spraying it on ourselves, spraying it in our eyes, putting it everywhere, soaking hands and feet in it, using it all the time for everything. And so they worked very hard to make a topical version, a gel version. So we could use it, take the liquid from the inside out and the gel from the outside in. And as a doctor, I have to tell you, I was highly offended by how excited people were about this product. It's like, isn't health paramount? That's what I do for a living. And I thought everybody is so excited about this gel, and they're not as excited about the liquid. But when they unleashed the product and people had to go to the back of the room to get it and there was a limited supply, y'all, I had to beat about 50 women out of there to get the gel first. So it's a pretty amazing product, and we'll show you some pictures. Anyway, this stuff is 100% safe. It's non-toxic. You can use it from the oldest of the old to the youngest of the young, and it just has side benefits. So here's some of the things that we know. Now, it's called Renew 28 because your skin cells turn over in 28 days. When you get to be a little bit older, it can take up to 90 days for it to do it, by age 50. So if you're over 50, give it a little bit of time. You will love it. It also reduces cellulite, which is a huge hit. Unbelievable. I was at a conference of women, and I talked about cellulite, and they were all like, tell me more. Even the wrinkles they weren't all that excited about. So anyway, it's been awarded 5 stars by Dermatest out of Germany, which is a huge thing for us in the US because our standards are not as high as the German standards. So the fact that it got 5 stars for both efficacy and for safety is a really big deal. You can see that it decreases wrinkles, improves elasticity of the skin, and actually increases skin hydration, which is amazing because it's not a moisturizer. It's not plumping up those cells because of putting moisture in them. It's actually healing the cells and making them more youthful. So pretty cool. And it's been validated by science. So, we've had studies not just by Dermatest, but also by Stevens in Dallas, Texas, which is close to me. So, visible reduction in redness, 50% increase in blood flow. That's amazing. Do you know anybody who could benefit from improved blood flow? We see all sorts of things with this. Just very, very interesting. And here's the butt study. This is Bart Cotter and Mal Sword. And they look great, don't they? Yeah. So in fact, they didn't even finish the study when they had these changes already. So you know what? Bathing suit season, not here. I forgot it's winter, isn't it? Well, in the US, we have women slathering it on, and some men too, because it has a 15% decrease in cellulite. This is the neck that launched the the company. Look at that. She showed up at that first convention when they launched the gel, and I'll tell you what, there was not a tube left, you know. People were fighting over that stuff. But look at all the differences, you know, redness, crepiness of the skin, eruptions, even lines of expression, things that are pretty hard to get rid of. And look at this arm. If I had that arm, I would be buying this by the jugful, you know? And even cracked feet, underarms, knees. That's a baby's knee. Just incredible. And just here's more. Look at this one right here. This is a really interesting one because they're showing skin discoloration. But if you can look closely, and I don't know how good that is, being, you know, enlarged this big, but even her pore size has changed, and the skin under her neck. And then here again. You know, my son, my older son, stepson, had really bad skin eruptions when he was in high school. And it was a self-confidence, self-esteem type of thing. So his dad and I agonized and put him on a medication that was actually toxic, and they had to follow his liver enzymes. You know, imagine now being able to have something like this that's 100% non-toxic, that does what this does. Pretty cool, huh? So you can use it for any part of the body. And this is seeing is believing. Now, down here in this corner is my best friend, Masami. And she called me. First, she sent me a picture of her husband's neck. Bruce is Caucasian, and his neck was greatly improved. And I was like, wow, I never knew Bruce's neck looked that bad, right? Because it had totally changed. And she said, yeah, but it doesn't work for me. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I've seen absolutely no change in my skin. And I said, well, you're Japanese, you have peaches and cream skin, you know, maybe you're just not going to see a big change. I said, did you take a before picture? And she said, yes. I said, well, take an after picture and just compare. And she sent these to me. I was like, oh my God, sister, keep using it. You know, there's a huge change. And you should see her now. She looks amazingly different. She looks very, very young. And my very favorite, and I hope she's not Australian. Is she here? Are you here? I love that picture. I mean, she didn't need renew. She just needed to smile at somebody, didn't she? Yeah, it would have been huge. Yeah. But anyway, seeing is believing, you guys, you know. So I love showing these kind of pictures. So much fun. So anyway, this is huge, you guys. This is a gene study that was done about 1.5 years ago. So we knew that the product did a lot of great things, but we didn't exactly know why it took care of one thing but not another, or different people had different expressions when they would use it. So they did an 8-week study, and they used healthy, like the mean age was 35 years old, and they put them on 8 ounces a day, which is twice of what our maintenance dose, but they wanted to see exactly what would happen. And they were governed by an independent review board that said that they could only do the study for 8 weeks. Now, there's tons of us who've been on these products for years, some people even a decade, with no negative effects. But the IRB was like 8 weeks, that's all you got. So they doubled up the dose. But it was really interesting because 100% of them had an effect from it, positive effects. So these effects were in 5 major areas of health: cardiovascular, GI, hormone modulation, immune status, and inflammation. Now, who here knows that inflammation is like the basis of every disease? Yeah. So, you know, there are millions of people who have autoimmune challenges, who have cardiovascular disease. 1 in 3 deaths is from cardiovascular disease. Hormones. Anybody know anybody with sugar problems, thyroid problems? Yeah. So amazing. So just about everybody I know is affected by one of those things. Just one of the 5 genes that was affected is called EGR1. And it has 15 different known pathways, which have to do with things like insulin signaling. Do you think that's important? Yeah. How about thyroid? Spinal cord injury. You know, I love this. Circadian rhythm, serotonin. Anybody feel a mood elevation, a better attitude? Your husband says you have a better attitude? Absolutely. That was the first thing my husband said. NRF2. Yeah, NRF2. Do you guys know what that is? It has to do with your master antioxidants. What most people don't know, when they're shoveling green tea and blueberries and all this other stuff into their guts, they don't know that they have to be activated. What activates these antioxidants? redox molecules, right? And we have a study that actually shows that glutathione and SOD, the two major antioxidants in the body, their efficacy is improved by 500 to 800%. Think that's pretty good? So we actually have people, in fact, one of them, you've probably heard his name, his wife, had excruciating pain after the birth of one of her children, had tried everything, was on all sorts of different treatments, taking tons of antioxidants. Nothing was working. One day on this product, those antioxidants got activated and she was pain-free. As he describes it, it's like taking being in a dark room and taking a light bulb and nothing happens. So bringing in a box of light bulbs and nothing happens until you hook them up to electricity and turn the lights on, right? And then they all turn on. So 800%. Lowers oxidized LDL. You think that's important? Anybody seen a change in their labs? Stay compliant here. Yeah. And lowers oxidized DNA, also something huge. This product, as a doctor for now 30 years, I have never written a prescription that didn't come without a laundry list of side effects and warnings. And this stuff has only side benefits. I've never had my hands on something so powerful that I could tell just about anybody to take and not worry about it at all. So you know what, you guys, dreams can come true. I love this quote by our founder, Vertus Norton. We are all at the start of something big with great purpose, and right now is the moment that we can begin influencing the future. We can change the world. Who wants to be a part of that? Who wants to change the world? Absolutely, absolutely. And that's me with Vertus in Cancun a couple of years ago. So that's it. Thank you, you guys.